my experiences after 6 months on the Carnivore Keto diet. Now, I say Carnivore Keto because I am not a purist, and that's one of the very first things that I want to make sure that you understand. So I do a little bit of a combination, which I feel like for most people is a better lifestyle choice. So I'm going to get into some of the specifics of why I'm doing this, what I've learned from it, and what my plan is going forward. I'm Jackie Elmer. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel and grab my guide over at lowertoxiclife.com. And definitely leave me a comment if you've tried carnivore, tried keto, what your experiences have been. Let's get some good dialogue going. So about 6 months ago, I decided to body hack myself. I had heard about the carnivore diet, which chances are good that you have too. It kept showing up in my YouTube feed and various places. And because I'm a health and nutritional coach and have been passionate about health and wellness, diet, nutrition my entire life, I thought, what do I have to lose? I'm going to give this a try. By the way, welcome to spring in the Scottsdale desert. You can hear the airplanes from the Scottsdale Air Park flying over, and I hope that you enjoy them as much as I do. So hopefully the background noise isn't too distracting. So why did I start this? Well, I didn't have a very specific reason in terms of I wasn't experiencing a whole lot of issues. I'm not doing it for weight loss, which a lot of people are. More than anything, I wanted to experience the shift in my body, see if many of the things that other people have experienced would be true for me. I do tend to still struggle with some inflammation issues, some joint stiffness, as well as a little bit of brain fog, and over the past few years of really becoming more of an intentional eater, very mindful, using intermittent fasting, one of the things that I became aware of is really tracking my body sensations after I eat. Any meal, anything unique and different, as well as eating at home, eating out, and just really tracking the differences in my body and what shows up when I eat differently. Now, I always say I kind of prescribe to the 80-20 rule, but really I'm more of a 90-10. 90% of the time I'm strict, I'm disciplined, I use a capsule meal plan, and I stay true to form. I plan my meals for the most part a week at a time, and while that may sound constricting, make sure that you view my video here on discipline, which is actually freedom. I still allow myself the flexibility to go out to dinner when the situation arises or take advantage of social events. I'm not so strict and rigid that I refuse to allow any flexibility. So what I wanted to do was see if some of the stuff was true. I wanted to experience carnivore for myself, inflammation, and a few digestive issues that I had started realizing. One thing that I had figured out for myself is that I don't do especially well with raw vegetables. Now, the reality of it is I have eaten salads in mass quantities my entire life. And so it was interesting to me when I really started paying attention to my body within 20 minutes of eating a salad, 2 hours later, 5, 6, 7 hours later, the next day, paying attention to how food processed and felt in my system, I really had some stark realizations. Most of us eat socially, right? And what I mean by that is most of us don't eat solo, independent, thinking about every bite that we take. We're with family, we're with friends, it's very social, and so most of the time we're eating, consuming without really paying attention and going slowly, allowing it to have 20 or so chews in our mouth before we swallow, and a lot of that kind of stuff. And for the most part, we don't really pay that much attention to the subtle sensations and messages that our body is cueing us in on when it is in the breakdown digestive phase of food. We might pay attention later in the evening if we feel indigestion, or the next day if we kind of have a food coma or don't feel particularly well, and we look at that as an extreme, but we seldom pay attention to the small, subtle cues that our body is giving us. So I wanted to see, how would my energy level be? How would my focus be if I tried this carnivore diet? Now, one of the first things that I know is that I was already a very clean eater, and this is important to note. I was already mostly done with ultra-processed foods. I may have 1 or 2 small quantities of ultra-processed foods on a weekly basis. I buy very little from the grocery store anymore that doesn't fit into one of my capsule meal plan formulas, which is a healthy lean animal protein, healthy fats, and a slow carb, with much more emphasis on the lean protein and the healthy fats, and a lot less emphasis on the slow carbs. Slow carbs would be something like broccoli, cauliflower, asparagus, green beans, something along those lines, with occasional potatoes and sweet potatoes thrown in. I very seldom do grains, beans, or legumes. They just don't do particularly well with my body, and based on the research that I have done, really and truly, the science proves that we don't actually need any of that in order to sustain life and be healthy. If you eat correctly on carnivore, and I'm going to recommend that you do some of your own research, and I'm creating another video on the 10 mistakes or more that most people make getting started, and some of the myths and some of the magic that's associated with carnivore keto if you really ascribe to this lifestyle. Now, when I say keto, the other thing that I really want to note is that I do not get caught up in any of the fad keto foods. I don't buy anything that's processed that says keto friendly. I know what it takes to be a keto eater in the pure, clean, whole, true foods, and that's what I really ascribe to. So the biggest thing is to ease into this slowly. So I did that, which is why I'm still calling myself Carnivore Keto. I have not yet evolved to a full carnivore. I'm hoping to do that in the next 90 days, so stay tuned to the channel because I will be giving you updates on that. So I was already a clean eater, eating mostly that. What I began to do is look at my diet and start factoring in more animal protein, more eggs and cottage cheese, dairy, butter, and animal fats such as bacon, the grease off of bacon and that type thing, beef tallow, and a lot of those type things. So I really started focusing on what could I swap my meal plan to that was mostly animal product based. And so that comes down to meat, comes down to eggs and dairy, butter, and those type things. Anything that comes fully from the animal. Now, I'm going to be the first to tell you I don't do organ meats and I don't do skin. It's just me. There's nothing wrong with those. Some people eat those and they're very, very happy with it, especially if you're eating the best quality type of meat that you can, the better that's going to be. I'm not here to dispute and say that any of that's bad. It's just for me personally, it's not palatable, and so I choose not to eat that. There are great supplements. I've actually purchased organ meat supplements before to, again, kind of biohack and figure out how my body felt. And I think that there can be an overemphasis on organ meats if we're not careful. I'm not negating the fact that they're good for you. And, caveman, cavewoman days have proven that for sure, the way that they lived, the way that they ate, and that type thing, that it can be totally fine for you. But we have to keep in mind that when you think about the size of a buffalo, for instance, how much actual muscle and meat they have on their body versus the small amount that's a liver or a heart, you can see where that could be very small quantities on a daily basis. 1 or 2 bites of any of that would be more than plenty to sustain you. So if you're thinking to yourself, I have to do organ meats, skin, or any of that type thing to do this, I'm here to tell you, you don't. There's probably the most purest form of carnivore, and that is not me. So definitely note that. And, now entering my 60s, I'm looking to live in a different way. I understand moderation. I understand easing into things and not just being, full force, go for something. One of the first things that I noticed is that I have a tendency to overeat. When you begin the carnivore process, one of the things that you'll quickly find out if you begin to eat intuitively and you pay attention to your body's signals is that you don't need to eat as frequently as we typically do. Whether it's 3 meals a day, 3 meals with 2 to 3 snacks a day in between, we, especially as Americans, overconsume food. And you can tell when you look at us stripped down in the mirror and you look at the bulge and all the different chronic illnesses and different things that go on within our bodies. So we tend to overeat. What I found is if I just really took a step back and paid attention to my body, about 2 meals a day is plenty for me. And truly, I'm learning to no longer live by the clock when I eat. So I'm not dialed into breakfast at this time, lunch at this time, or dinner at this time, because that's what we're supposed to do. As you know, if you've followed my videos here, I'm into the evening routine as well. So my goal is to be done eating at the latest at 4 in the afternoon. Now again, I allow room for flexibility. So if I have a social event, I'm going out to dinner, having friends over, that's the night that I choose to do the 10% or the 20%, and I have to go outside of my typical eating pattern. But again, if I stay in my eating pattern for the most part, I find that things just flow and work out beautifully. So that's the 80-20, 90-10 rule with that. So one of the first things for me is I had to release my thoughts around breakfast, lunch, and dinner at specific times. Now, as an intermittent faster, I quit snacking a long time ago. And what I really learned is that if I would eat healthy, eat to satiety, meaning eat till I was full, not stuffed, but full, then it's typically really and truly 5 to 6 hours between meals before I even begin to get hungry. And so much of that extra eating or drinking just really was a habit I was ready to break. Now, getting into that relaxed, intuitive style of eating is simple, but it's not easy because, like most of us, I was conditioned over time to believe in the clock, monitoring and dictating when my meals would be and when I was supposed to do this or supposed to do that. So write that down. It is simple, but not necessarily easy, but that's okay because we can do hard things, especially if we know and we prepare for them ahead of time, which is one of the things that I'm going to share more on another video. But one of the first things that I did is I planned for my own derailments. I planned for the obstacles that I knew were going to come up for me, whether it was just my mindset around, oh my gosh, it's 12 noon, I should be eating, but I'm not hungry. But if you don't eat at 12 noon now, then you're going to have to make it all the way to 3 or 4 or something like that. So I had to really let go of those limiting beliefs that weren't serving me around food. And that's hard to do because we live in a society where food is at the center of everything that we do. Holidays, special events, the family dinner time in the evening, and all of those different things encompass so much of the standards and the customs and the way that we live our lives. Nothing wrong with that, but also nothing wrong with stepping away from those old traditions on a consistent basis, but allowing those to still show up in our lives when it presents itself. Holidays are a classic example. I'm going to enjoy the holidays. I'm going to enjoy the holidays socially with food and all of that. And at the same time, I'm still going to choose the best food options that I can for myself, for my body, for my longevity, even during these holiday periods. So one of the questions that I get asked is, what do you eat? What does a day consist of for you? And it varies somewhat, but I will tell you pretty consistently, here's how my day flows. I get up and I always start with my morning tea. I love a lovely Earl Grey bergamot tea that I start my morning with as I do my morning routine, my thought downloads, getting out, resetting my circadian rhythm out in the sun, working out, my movement, everything that goes into my morning routine. My cup of tea typically goes along with that. Now, in the past, what I have done, and this is something I'm going to be shifting a little bit over the next 90 days, is I would have my bulletproof coffee. And my bulletproof coffee is basically coffee with grass-fed butter, MCT oil, and then some spices and things. I don't love coffee, so cacao powder and cinnamon and some of those spices. And I use coconut cream as a creamer and almost make it like a smoothie, including collagen, which has animal proteins. I use an animal collagen blend, so it has those animal proteins, etc. So usually somewhere around 8 or 9 in the morning is when I would have my bulletproof coffee. Now here's where it was getting challenging, is because the healthy fats in bulletproof coffee often will satiate me till quite a long time into the afternoon. So I'm starting to eliminate I'm working to try, I should say, to eliminate that morning bulletproof coffee and start with a different breakfast option. So my staples in my carnivore keto diet are animal proteins, and my favorites are bison, lamb, chicken, turkey, and I have recently reintegrated beef into my life. Now, I have been a non-beef eater since I was 20 years old, so it's been decades since I've eaten beef. But what I really wanted to do was work myself out of the mental mindset around why I didn't like beef. It wasn't a health issue, it wasn't any of that. It was just a lot of other stuff. And I had to let go of that and slowly integrate myself back into eating beef. And I'm happy to say I've accomplished that, and I'm thrilled with it, and I'm loving it, and I'm wondering what I missed out on all these years. So those are my primary choices, and then of course plenty of fish. I love salmon, I love tuna, and then I love sea bass. Those are my 3 fish of choice. I'm not a big shrimp or shellfish person, but I will eat those on occasion, and I do love scallops. So I also incorporate seafood into it, fish and seafood, and then of course bacon. Pure, antibiotic free, as healthy as I can find it, bacon. Now, I'm going to say this on animal protein and quality. I'm not a fan of factory farming or any of the horrible things that go on with animals produced in that way. And so I buy from sustainable sources, pasture raised, organic, and humanely processed meats. At the same time, I still am a believer that the lowest quality meat that you might find traditional at the grocery store is still a better option than any highly processed food that you could put into your body, including Beyond Beef or any of those, which are essentially a chemical toxic soup. Sorry for all of my Beyond Beef people. I might not be the right person for you. We can still have a love relationship in other areas, but maybe in food choices, we won't find parity. And that's okay. I'm not here to change you. I'm not here to be changed. I'm not here to lecture you or tell you what you should do. I'm simply sharing my experiences. And I am an uber non-fan of ultra-processed foods. If you've watched my video on the 5 ingredient rule, I really try to stick to that. I try to stick to not purchasing any items in the grocery store that have more than 5 ingredients in them, and certainly not anything that I can't pronounce the ingredients, buy it at the store to actually bring it home and prepare. And that includes natural flavorings or anything with the word natural, which is a marketing term that means absolutely nothing. And there's no truth in the word natural, and there's no transparency or no honesty even required. So those are my animal protein sources, and then of course I save all of the drippings from all of the meats that I prepare, including my bacon. I save the bones, I make my own bone broth, I do all of that. So bone broth will be a part of it, my healthy animal proteins, and then I have healthy fats, the butter, the bacon grease, bacon itself, which actually has more of a fat content typically than the protein content. And then I have, and this is kind of more along my keto lines, I love avocados, I love olives, and I love artichoke hearts. Those are kind of my 3 go-to items that are still more on the keto side of things. They're healthy fats, they're slow carbs, and they're lower in oxalates. If you haven't Googled the term oxalate, please look it up. You can go to citations.lowertoxiclife.com where I have some references to what that is. But essentially it comes down to this. Every living organism on the planet has a desire to stay alive, and they have a natural defense mechanism to ward off any predators. And humans are predators when it comes to plants, just like we're predators when it comes to other animals. And so you might have heard of lectins and Dr. Gundry and a lot of those, the plant paradox, and a lot of those type books and resources where he talks and others talk about the lectins and the chemicals and the toxic chemical levels that are in plants. That's just a reality, and you can resist it all you want, but you could research it and the science will prove that it's there. Now, the reality of it is almost every food that we eat has some form of toxin or something to try to prevent us from eating it. And our goal is to figure out the ones that work the best within our bodies. So you can research oxalate, OXALATE, and you can learn more for yourself about what these are, but all plants have these. And for a lot of people, when they first start on carnivore or even keto, they begin to have what's called an oxalate shed. And some people even get crystals that come out of their eyes, especially vegans or anybody who's lived very, very much on a largely plant-based diet, because our bodies are full of these oxalates, and it can create a toxic overload in our liver and different areas of our body. Now, I don't say any of that to scare you, just to help you educate yourself. And this was me. I have eaten salads my whole life, lots of raw vegetables, but as I started being more of an intuitive eater, just like I said, I started paying attention to the cues that my body was giving me after I would eat some of these things. And they were subtle cues. My body wasn't screaming at me, but 20 minutes later I would think to myself, wow, my stomach's growling, it's rumbling, like I can feel the digestive juices rolling around in there, or I start feeling brain fog, I feel really tired, super lethargic, different things like that. And so I really started paying attention to that and tracking, what time do I feel this way and what did I last consume? And so often it was vegetables. And trust me when I say this, that's the last thing I wanted to hear, because I love my vegetables. I love them, love them, love them. I could eat cauliflower rice all day long, broccoli, almost any vegetable. I love potatoes. There's nothing better to me than mashed potatoes, organic new potatoes, my smushed ones with a little bit of pasture-raised butter and salt. Yum, yum, yum. But I had to pay attention to whether my body loved them as well, and whether they really loved my body. So that's a big part of it, is really beginning to listen to your body. So that's me, largely animal proteins, healthy fats, and then a few of those slow carbs plugged in. Now, what I do, if you've watched my video on eggs, I'll link all this in the show notes, but I love to make quiche because I love to cook, but I also like to meal prep and know for the whole week that I have ready-made, homemade, good quality foods available for me for breakfast on the go, lunch on the go, or any of that. So every week I make a load of my little mini quiches, and my mini quiche consists of pasture-raised eggs, but any eggs will do. Typically the Good Culture cottage cheese full milk version, or a goat yogurt, a little bit of feta cheese, sheep's. For me, this is for me, my body does better with sheep and goat than it does cow dairy, but I do eat some cow dairy, and then I will put a combination of meats in with my quiche because I don't love eggs, so I have to doctor them up. It's kind of like, you know, me with a lot of different things. I don't love coffee, so I have to doctor it up. I don't love this, I don't love that, so I find ways that work for me. Green chilies are another thing. I was raised in the Southwest. I was raised by a dad who, you know, the hotter the better, so I have a very strong heat tolerance from the way that I was raised. So green chilies, salsa, hot sauce, those are some of the things that I pour on my eggs. So that's it for me. Animal proteins, the healthy fats, the little mini quiches, which are essentially animal proteins, baked, ready to go. I keep some in my refrigerator, I keep them frozen, and then I can pop them out at any time and have a good, healthy, nutritious carnivore keto meal anytime that I need it. So the biggest keys for getting started, know why you're doing this. Have some goals set for yourself. Is it weight loss? Is it just a body hack? Is it to get rid of some brain fog, some inflammation? Just to see if you can recover from skin issues? You name it. There are documented case studies out there just about everywhere. If you don't follow Dr. Ken Berry, make sure that you follow him for sure. He's one of my go-tos. There are another, Dr. Boz. There's a number of them out there. You just have to, you know, type in keto, carnivore, and you will find them. But these are the doctors who I follow. And the thing I love about Dr. Ken Berry is that he's actually doing his own case study, real live, with himself, his wife, his family, and his patients. He's putting them on these regimens. He's doing all the lab work, the body testing, the blood testing, and he's tracking their results so that he can actually say, I have the case studies that I've done independently with hundreds of patients. Now, I'm not one that necessarily needs a peer-reviewed case study anymore, because I don't believe in our medical journals anymore. I don't believe that they're not captured and bought and paid for, and there's been so much proof of that. So for me, I'd rather sit down and talk to someone who says, this is what I was experiencing, this is what I did, and these are my results. Again, we are all bio-individual. My results will be different from your results because where we were born in the world, the way that we were born, antibiotics, were we breastfed? I mean, there's so many things that come into play when it comes to our own health to begin with. And so we all kind of start with where we are, and we build and work on that and work to stay healthy, get healthy, stay functional, and have that longevity life. So for me, it's get very clear on your goals, pre-plan as much as possible, plan for your derailments so that when you end up in that social setting and you're looking at the pizza, eat the topping off the pizza. You don't have to eat the crust. I mean, when you really sit down and start planning for any of your derailments, you will have so much more success. And that includes friends, family members, and well-meaning people close to us who want to tell us that we are crazy. Just have that explanation ready for them as to why you're trying this, and that it's just a short-term test. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm going to commit to the next 90 days of being as pure carnivore as I can be, and then we'll see from that. I don't really see this for myself as being lifetime, long-term, something that I'll fully commit to, and most people don't need to do that. Again, it's that 80-20, that 90-10 philosophy of what your goals are, what you're hoping to achieve, what you're planning to achieve, what you're committed to achieving. So have all of that in place ahead of time, that meal plan, all of that, and you will see so much more success. And then the final question I hear a lot is, what about the cost? Meats are expensive, a lot of that's expensive. Here's what I'm going to tell you. I don't try to get in anybody else's checkbook, but what I find with a lot of people is that when they stop buying those $4, $5, $6 boxes of cereal and those other expensive ultra-processed foods, when they eliminate those from their food bill and they start really becoming an intuitive eater that says, I'm not going to eat based on the clock anymore, I'm going to eat based on my body, and my body saying, I am hungry. And even when my body signals I'm hungry, I always delay it by at least 30 minutes. I'll drink a glass of water and set my timer to wait 30 minutes, and then I check in on how I feel. And a lot of times that alleviates it, and then I wait till those stronger sensations come in. So that's what I have. Please, again, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I'm looking forward to sharing my keto carnivore journey with you. I'm interested in hearing about yours, any feedback that you have, and grab my guide at lowertoxiclife.com. Check the show notes because I'm going to have links to some of the videos that I referenced as well as some of the channels. And thanks for spending this time here with me in the beautiful spring Scottsdale desert.